building and growing a successful web design business.
Yeah.
We're very excited. So today, we have something kind of fun planned for today. We have some Q&A planned, and we actually have some Q&A submitted too. So we're going to have a lot of fun. We've got some really, really good questions in about how to get clients, how to streamline your business and your workflow. And yeah, there's a lot of fun stuff. But we want to start out with a quick intro about each of us. We're actually going to use this episode as the first episode of our podcast when we started on Spotify. So we just wanted to take a minute and talk a little bit about each of us, our backgrounds, what we do, and how we got here, and why we wanted to start this podcast. So Caitlin, do you want to go first?
Sure. That's a loaded question, isn't it, for people like us?
Yeah.
How did we get here?
How did we get here? What happened?
Well, back in the 90s, no, I'm just kidding. I actually went to college for design. I stumbled on it kind of accidentally because I knew I wanted to be doing something creative, but I had a really good advisor, which I since heard of is not a common thing. And she was like, well, what do you like to do in your spare time? And I was like, well, I create things in Publisher for fun. And she's like, oh, you need to be a graphic designer. So that's kind of all she wrote. That was 2006-ish when I changed my major. And then I got my first design job somewhere in that neighborhood too, kind of outside of classes. And I've been freelancing ever since then. So basically I've been designing since 2006. That's a lot of years. I don't know how many, but it's a lot.
It is. It's a long time. And you started out doing print.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I started out doing print, branding, conceptual design, package design, all kinds of fun things. I got sick of it pretty quick because you run into a lot of like color related issues, screen calibrations, and like clients are looking at it on their screen. I'm looking at it on mine. It's not the same colors. So I got sick of that after a while.
That's so interesting. That's fun. That's going to be fun to talk about when we do our color episode. We have some fun things planned for later in the year, including an entire episode on color. So anyway, that's cool.
Yeah.
I'm going to circle back to that.
Yeah. So I'm a pretty detail-oriented person. I think web was a good fit for that specific reason. It was like, ooh, I have a reason to be diving in and going into the weeds of this thing.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. So it's like all the things that I like, plus none of the things that were bugging me for the past 14 or so years when I switched over. Mm-hmm. So, and I can't get excited about those old things anymore. Web's where it's at.
So you obviously love what you do now. So obviously, I mean, this is part of what we bonded over. And so you want to talk a little bit about what you enjoy about doing this now?
Yeah. I mean, it just kind of feels like I get paid to have a hobby.
Oh,
I like to help people. I was just on a call earlier today, and he was asking like, how do I get started? And it just feels really good to have that conversation, to be like, yeah, this is possible. Mm-hmm. I mean, everybody's good at something. So if you can find the thing that you're good at, and if it crosses over with money that you can also get from doing that thing, then it's a really cool adventure.
Yeah, true story. True story. Awesome. I love that. Well, we have some funny comments in the chat. So Linda says hi. And then Walt's like, wait, I started in the 90s. Right. I relate too. She said that. And I was like, is that when I started? I'm like, is that? But it's not quite. But yeah.
I did amateur starts in the 90s, like in Publisher, before I knew designing was a thing.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. And Linda has a good question. What helped you when you started working for yourself, Caitlin?
Google University.
Really? Oh,
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I started in 2015. I opened a Facebook page and an Etsy shop. I only ever sold one thing, happened to be on my birthday, from a complete stranger. And then I shut it down because not great. I didn't take a course or anything like that on business until probably 2016, and then I took another one in 2019. So it was kind of a progression, but mostly the first one I ever took was $297, just for comparison. We all know how expensive courses can be now. That felt like a huge investment.
I was going to say it probably felt big.
Oh, yeah. It was like clammy hands, shaky, like, how am I going to make this back, So, yeah, in between all of that, it was a whole lot of reading every blog post I could read, and I started picking up business books. I mean, it was like all the free thing most like what most people do.
Yeah.
As much value as you can, puzzle piece together for free until you can afford to do the next thing, whatever that is.
Yeah, for sure. And, Linda has another question. What were you selling images on Etsy? What were you selling on Etsy?
Oh, no. I was an in-house designer at a print production company, and because of that, I had access to all of the stuff that they printed on, and I could design the stuff and have them printed, and so I was printing kind of ad hoc when I'd get an order. Thankfully, I didn't have stacks of these things because, like I said, I only sold one, and actually it was, like a hand-drawn thing of David Bowie's face right after he died, so it was like memoir or something. What do you call those? Like, yeah, it was a koozie, like a foam koozie thing that you put your can in. That's what it
Right?
was. Like, completely random. No wonder it didn't work, right?
That's amazing. Yeah, so your brand must have been all over the place, then you were I mean, it's
Completely.
hard to run a store. Yeah, it's hard to run a store if there's nothing unifying the store together, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. No, absolutely nothing.
That's awesome. Okay, I love that. Oh, in France here, started in the 90s. Yes, yes, more of us started in the 90s, yes. Um, okay, so I know we're spending a little bit longer on this than we intended. We were planning on this just being really quick, but I think this is going to be kind of interesting. So, what would you say in those kind of early days were like the biggest challenges you were up against?
Oh, um, the first one would probably have to be time management because I had a full-time job and it was like a 20 or 30-minute drive to and from that job, so another hour was wasted in the car, and then, doing any work after that was nights and weekends, and I really didn't have a life. That felt like the biggest challenge for the longest period of time.
Mhm,
And then if that's like, if we don't even talk about that because that's kind of like work-life balance, personal life stuff,
mhm,
um, oddly, you go to like everybody's like, "Do I need a degree to do design?" And the answer is no, because I have a near degree. I'm like 6 to 9 credits shy of having one.
mhm.
That's a different story, but they never taught me business specifically. It's like it's all design stuff. It's like how to do this stuff. So they don't teach you how to create a business, how to run a business, how to manage a business, how to be a business owner, which is a totally different thing than being an employee, of course. And so that struggle of like, and also it's hardest to design for yourself. It's hardest to market for yourself.
Oh my god.
So that's like really just a mountain of like all of the things that you don't know and all of the things that are hard all at the same time. And if you don't have a network where you're like in the weeds with other people trying to do the same thing, it feels very um lonely, I guess, because you don't know who to talk to about it. You have no one to go to advice for, and you feel really impostery about the whole thing. And yeah, all of that was hard.
Oh my gosh, I relate to that so much. All of those, but the last one in particular, because I didn't know anybody else who was running their own business. No one in my family ran their own business. Like I was the only human being in the world, in the universe, who was trying to do this crazy thing. That's certainly how it felt. So yeah,
Mhm.
I really relate to that too. And Linda said, when you changed to what you're doing now, what did you do differently?
I basically just stopped offering or talking about the things that I didn't wanna do anymore, and, like, I took them off my services page, I stopped putting them as a listed item in the inquiry form, I stopped talking about it, and, like, I have clients now who have no idea that's my background,
Yeah.
and I really just kinda cut it out of my life like they were toxic.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
That's how you do it though, right?
Yeah,
That's the sauce. That's the secret sauce.
yeah, yeah, just
You cut
change your
out the stuff you
messaging.
don't wanna do anymore. Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
Very fun. Very fun. I love it. Yeah, that's amazing. All right. Any other thoughts? I mean, obviously we'll keep coming back to this kind of stuff, but any other thoughts before I'll do mine?
Nope, nope, not that I can think of. I'm super curious about yours.
Okay, cool. Barb says no one needs that toxic negativity, right? Heck yeah. Heck
Absolutely
yeah.
right.
Right. Um, yeah. So I graduated with a degree in sociology and religion/philosophy, which was very practical. And I fancied myself. I wanted to be a writer, really wanted to be a writer. I loved writing and stories, and I just really wanted to do that. But I just couldn't make it work. I joined a bunch of writers groups and I went to every writers conference and everything and took all these classes and just could not make a go of it. And one day this girl came in and said, "Oh, look at my new website. Isn't it amazing?" And she showed it to us. And I was like, that is the ugliest thing I have ever seen in my life. And she was like, it only cost me $400. And I was like, maybe right. Yes. Interesting. I was like, maybe I could make, and I was like, I played around in Publisher all the time. I mean, I'd never built a website or anything, but like I certainly played around with graphic designy things, even though I don't even think I knew that term at that point. But I was like, I could do better than that and make more money than I was making writing unfinished romance novels. So I was like, okay, let's give this a go. And so I was like, can I actually do this? Built a couple sites in Publisher, no shame. Then built a bunch in Front Page actually. And got a few writer clients and then got a few writers organization clients. And then, people started paying me more and more money. And I was like, this is actually a successful little gig. And then Google changed their, and I learned about SEO. I kind of dove in, same as you. I was like, ooh, I can geek out here. And like, the cool thing to me about web design is that there's so many things, there's so many parts to it. Like you need to have an aesthetic sense and you need to be good at design, but then you also need to be kind of techy and geeky and detail oriented, but you also need to be able to tell a good story because guess what? That's what copy is and marketing is. And so there's all these pieces that were fascinating to me that I was good at. And for the first time, my jack of all trades, master of none sort of like mentality and experience of life like was going to pay off. I was like, oh, I'm good at all these things. And so, yeah, I kind of dived into it and I got to be where if you Googled web design for authors, I was number 1 or number 2. There was this other designer who was, like it was amazing. I was getting clients from all over the world. Like I had clients in like Haiti and Canada and the UK and like everywhere, all over the place, like North Vietnam or Vietnam. I had clients in Vietnam. I had clients in all over the place. So anyway, so I really loved doing that, but then Google changed their search results. And so instead of they localized them. So if you Googled web designer and just web design for small business or whatever, I came up if they were in Denver, Colorado, even if they weren't an author. And so now all of a sudden I have all these people who don't want to read emails and they're not writers, but they're like plumbers or financial advisors or accountants. And I kind of just had to expand my business and start, building websites. Again, you had to learn how to, service all these different kinds of people. And then that was when my business really started to take off. It got really big pretty much overnight. And yeah, that was my story. And but it was WordPress. Okay, yeah. So I was pretty quickly I moved into WordPress. I hated WordPress. I really didn't like it. Even the whole time I was working in it, I didn't like it. It doesn't give a good customer experience for most small businesses. And so I sold that in 2015, did consulting for a few years, burn out pretty hard, and then rediscovered Squarespace right after they launched Fluid Engine in when was that?
In
2022?
2022?
Yeah, 2022, summer of 2022. And I thought maybe I can hang out a shingle again and do this again. And that was when I started this business, this little boutique business.
That's cool. I have a secret.
Oh,
So when I was a kid, I don't know, like middle school-ish, my best friend and I we had those like spiral notebooks and we this is so retarded. We we went to football games and like all these other stuff with our families and whatever. That was not our thing. So we'd take our little spiral notebooks and we would write stories. in the spiral notebooks, like fiction stories.
Really?
Yeah, we would read each other's stories.
How much fun!
So, I don't know if I'd fancy myself a writer, but at one time I was doing a whole lot of writing for no apparent reason.
That's amazing. Oh my god, more stuff we have in common. How much fun. And do you find like it's a skill? I feel like that's a skill that's needed in web design. Like there's
Yeah.
a story to how people walk through the site. There's a story to how you develop like the brand for your client. I mean, it's
Mhm.
useful.
Yeah, it is.
How
It's a
funny.
different way to think about it for sure.
I love that. That's amazing. How much fun. Okay, so yeah, let me know if you guys have any questions about my background or anything, but that's kind of how we got here. Do you want to talk a little bit about why we love Squarespace so much? Walt says, yeah, WordPress is very love-hate. It's always kind of been that way, yeah, for sure.
Um, for me, the main question everybody asks is like, are you really a web designer if you're using Squarespace? And I hate that question because do you want to produce a product that your client doesn't isn't afraid to death to break, is not going to get hacked? Like it's not about the platform, it's about what you're handing off to the person. And the market that we're in is not like we're not working with IBM, we're not working with Apple. Like they have dedicated teams, departments for this kind of thing. The people that we work with need to be able to post their own blog. They need to add their own event. They need to update the pricing. They need to swap out the form on their contact page, swap out the photos. If we make it easy for them, then it doesn't matter what the platform is. If Squarespace stopped being this easy, then I would move over to something else. Like, so I do love Squarespace because it is easy. The other platforms I have used are Showit, Webflow, Shopify, um, Weebly, oddly, a little bit in Wix. None of them are so quick to turn something around. Squarespace makes it so incredibly easy that it can become a volume thing for us if we want to. But also, I don't have to waste my time drawing a rectangle and putting text on top of it and linking the rectangle and linking the button and giving them both an animation and both a hover animation and then changing that on the mobile view because that's only styled in the. I don't want to do that. It's just a button. Like, no.
Right.
So Squarespace has its design limitations, but also it's time saving and it's more time efficient because of those things.
And it's so much easier. I can't agree with all of that enough. And it's so much easier for the client. That's the thing
Mhm.
that really gets me is I especially when I moved into consulting and I worked so closely with all my clients, I've always felt bad recommending WordPress to them because I'm like, I know how hard this is going to be for you to maintain. I know
Mhm.
you're going to struggle to add a hyperlink for crying out loud. And I know it's going to break. And I don't know when it's going to break because I don't know when the next WordPress update is coming out. And
Mhm.
so, and you're going to pay out the nose to have this thing that is going to be a thorn in your side for as long as you have this business. I'm so sorry. The best I can do is make it pretty. Like that was how I felt about it. And so when I found Squarespace and discovered Fluid Engine, and the reason I worked in Squarespace is it was the only gig in town. If you wanted to grow a serious business, in my opinion, I was like WordPress is the way to go because it was customizable and I felt stuck with it. I'm like, this sucks, but it honestly is the best solution out there. And when I found Fluid Engine, I was like, wait, oh my goodness. Like I can almost give a client a site with no tutorials, no nothing, and they can update it. Now they can't change out fancy things and maybe they struggle to, they might struggle with something more complex, but like changing text, changing an image, adding a page, like you can almost do that with no help right out the gate. And that feels so good to me. So yeah, so that's why we love Squarespace.
Yeah, it's almost like feeling chained to your desk, but with every client. If you can't literally just hand it off and be like, okay, a lot of this you can maintain yourself. That
Mhm.
means they're not coming back to you to like change out a phone number or change out an email address. It's things that are so fast that maybe you might feel a little bad charging an hour to do something that takes 2 seconds.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or finding
Correct.
time in your calendar for something that takes 2 seconds. All of that's just not what I wanna do.
Right? Okay, so a little bit about why we wanted to do this podcast, you and me.
Yeah. Well, it started because we're both in Paige Brenton's world, and we needed to do some content, and then when we started doing the content, we were like, "Oh my god, this is so much fun. What if we did this more often?" And then it was like, "What if we did this more often and it took something else off our plate? We could just swap this out with something we were already gonna do anyway." And thus the podcast was born. What would you say?
Yeah, so definitely for sure that we both were like, "Oh my gosh, this is like such a fun way to create content." We're in. um, and such a good way to connect with other people. You and I both are so passionate about this work because we really love it. We love our businesses. We really love our clients. We really love what we do, and I think that's one of the things we appreciate about each other. And one of the reasons you and I both have a pretty high standard for excellence, I would say. It's funny, we do a lot of things differently, but we care about a lot of the same things. And there's a lot of mutual respect, I think, between us because of that. And so like from the get-go, it was like, oh, we have a lot of things to talk about, and we can talk about all the ways that we're different and all the ways we do things differently, because like Caitlyn's processes blow my mind. I'm like, I cannot with that. It's like rocket science. And
And
like, and I
yours
have
blow my mind, and I cannot, and it feels like rocket science, but I love that.
right. But there's so many things that we're like, we really agree with how to treat clients. We agree with like how to lay out content on sites. We agree with like the storytelling of sites. There's so many things that we're in alignment on. And I was just like, I know if we get together and talk that we have a lot that we can contribute to people, and it would be fun too to grow a little community of people who wanted to come and talk to us in this way and get questions answered and stuff, because we really like the live aspect too. So
Yeah, yeah.
and I would say too, we did want to talk about this, is that if you're a beginner web designer, we love you. We want you here. We're going to talk about tons of stuff that I think is going to help you, because we want to talk about like how to get clients and how to grow your business and all that stuff. But we are very geeky, and we both have been doing this almost 20 years. So we will talk plenty about some more advanced, like intermediate topics. That's kind of who we have in mind for our audience, because we're going to go deep into color, and we're going to go deep into font choice, and we're going to go deep into like the psychology of the intake form that you have on your site and how you work with clients. And so lots of really good, deep stuff here. So we have some really fun stuff planned for the rest of the year. But this session, we really wanted to talk about, we really just wanted to do a Q&A. So we were both part of an event last year where people submitted questions, web designers submitted questions, and there were so many good questions in the group that Caitlin and I Caitlin actually copied all the questions, and we were like, this is content. we're gonna go through these. So we're gonna dive into those. And if you have questions you want answered, drop them in the chat. We will answer those and give you guys priority. But we have a whole list, and we have some that are pre-submitted. And Leska commented, said, really hoping I'm close to where you gals are in 2 years and find a PV student bestie to do things with. Yes. Awesome.
Totally. You can do it.
Yes, absolutely. So doable. So much fun. All right. What was our pre-submitted question? You want to start with that one?
Sure. They actually submitted 3, I think. So we'll start with
awesome.
1. I have the acquired skill of Shopify development, but I don't know how to get clients. Can you help me with that? Can I get my first client?
Awesome.
You're in Shopify right now. What are your thoughts?
Today is not the day to ask me. Today is not the day. I do also, I'm expanding to work in Shopify, and right now we're in a little bit of a love-hate relationship with Shopify. So I might have nicer things to say next month. I'm mostly kidding. But so if you've got some Shopify experience, I would say number one, go you. There's a really good market there. There's a lot of good money to be had in the e-commerce world. I would say generally, e-commerce sites garner a lot more money than service-based sites, which is what Squarespace is really aimed at. Would you agree with that, Caitlin?
Yeah, for sure.
So go you. So that's great. You're building a really good skill set. I would say number one is you need a website of your own. I know that a lot of people say that you don't have to have a website of your own, but I would get like a one pager up so that you can start at least talk a little bit about what you do. And I would try and, the key to building a good site, I'm going to try and not make this a 30-minute answer to this question.
I know it's a loaded question, right?
It is. It is a
really
little
long
bit.
answer.
Right. So the key to building any good site, and this is especially true for you as a web designer, is you've got to know what sets you apart from your competition, and you've got to know who your niche is. Now, those two things, and this is what I yammer on about all the time, is those two things fit together like a puzzle piece. Those two things fit together perfectly. So the thing that sets you apart and makes you unique and that gives people a reason to choose you over another Shopify designer fits like a puzzle piece with your niche and the primary pain of the demographic you want to go after. And so to give you an example, like if somebody really wants, like if your gift, if the thing you're really good at is like building beautiful Shopify sites, then your right person, your niche are going to be people who are really looking for gorgeous sites. And so that needs to be in your copy. So even if you have a one-page website, you talk up that thing that really makes you amazing, and you talk about the people that you're here to serve with it. For example, I'll tell you, if you go to my site, I talk about results oriented. I talk about because I pride myself on knowing copy, on knowing marketing strategy, because I've been doing this for so long. And my ideal clients are people who want that. So I would say you need a website where you need to be talking up those two things. Other than that, start building some sites for people on the cheap if you can. So you have at least 2 to 3 sites in your portfolio, even if it's just a section on your one-page website where you can point to, this is the kind of work that I will do for you. So it's not just your USP and niche, but it's examples of this is what I can deliver. And then you just get out there and you talk it up. You give it to everybody you know. And I can give you I can give you actual specific strategies on actually how to get clients, but I'll stop. Caitlin, do you want to add anything to that?
That was the thing that I was going to say. Like you can't operate a business in a void. And so the imposter syndrome cannot stop you from talking to people, telling people what you're doing. You have to tell people. That's how you get your first few clients, in my experience.
It is. And if you want a framework for that, friends and family, everybody, and literally I would go to your phone, I would go to who you've texted and recently or not. And if you are an introvert like me and your text is, these are my 2 friends, and then a whole bunch of 2-factor authentication, verification, that's everything in my phone. Go through your phone, go through your text messages, go through your contacts, and literally tell everyone. Tell if there are a few people you don't talk to, tell 90%, really go for it. Then go through Facebook, then go through Twitter, whatever social media you're active on, and send some direct messages. Then if you're on Facebook, I would go into groups and start, dropping hints, and we can get more into the psychology of how I would do that too, because Caitlin and I have talked about that, but that's probably enough on this one question.
And I would also say not just once, you have to talk about it and repeat yourself a lot.
Yeah.
To the point where it probably feels uncomfortable for you.
Oh yeah. You've got to feel you're not doing it right unless you feel very sleazy. You've got to be, oh my God, I'm so pushy. Then you're almost there.
Yeah.
Almost.
Yeah. Nobody cares about what we're doing except for us. So nobody else is going to notice that you're saying it 7 times. They're only going to see it once.
Oh, it's so true. You can talk about stuff on your, I send my newsletter all the time. I feel like I'm yelling at people all the time about all the stuff I'm doing. I can't tell you how many people come to me and say, I always miss your lives. I don't know when they are, and the whole thing. And I'm just because I'm not doing it enough. You think that you're being way more obnoxious than you are. So really get it out there.
Yeah.
And Barb asks, would you do those for free or at a very low cost? I would, just to get the business. I'm very much a fan of, here's how I would do it. On your site, I would put a reasonable price, maybe a newbie price, a low-ish price, nothing super cheap or discounted, because people assign a value according to what it costs them to get it. Always, it's human nature. We can't help it. So I would assign a pretty decent value. But then when I reached out to people one-on-one, I would say, to build my portfolio, I am doing these at half cost. So, or half off, or 75% off, or for $500 or whatever. And so then when they go to your site and they see that what you've built and what it's worth, it assigns that value in their head, that perceived value. Oh, wow. Ooh, this is a $2,500 site. I can get it for $800. Heck yeah. And then that's how I would do it.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. The follow-up question or a statement, I guess, is there's a myth as a developer, you can make less money as a Shopify developer than a Squarespace developer, which is actually the reverse, I think, of what we were just talking about earlier. So I think that must be platform specific in every platform. Like Webflow must have their own, Showit must have their own, Shopify must have their own, Squarespace has its own, but they're apparently all myths because that's not true.
Yeah.
I
No.
actually know a designer who charged $80,000 for a Shopify website.
Right.
She said she'd never do that again, and I can't blame her, but it happened. I don't know any Squarespace designer that charged $80,000. I know a few that charge 20, but I don't know anybody that charges 80.
I think Sam Crawford's, his claim to fame, his Squarespace site was 70,000.
Well, there you go.
Yeah. So that's pretty close, but that's way
Yeah.
above anything I've ever heard. For most Squarespace sites, I think you start to hit a cap around like 20.
Yeah, for sure.
Even though 20 is nothing to seize that, but it's not, and Shopify, like for a successful store that's really selling like 20 to 30 grand is more like the standard.
Yeah,
seems like
that's what I've seen too.
And
the
then
last
Walt
question.
says, oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
Well, no, yeah, Walt had a thing. And add, if you don't need a website, let me know. Yes. Walt, such a good point. Thank you for saying that. Yes. If you don't need a website, let me know if you someone else who needs a website. That's almost a better approach. So instead of reaching out to people and saying, do you need a website? Reach out to people and say, hey, I'm doing a thing. Do you know of anyone who needs a website? Because then it's not on them and they don't feel like they immediately need to be like, no, leave me alone. You're saying, do you know of anyone? And almost everybody knows somebody who needs a website. So better approach.
I actually did that too. Yeah, that worked. That got me the first 2 or 3, I think, and they ended up being people I knew, but I didn't ask them directly. I was just like, hey, this is what I'm doing. Do you know anybody that needs one? And they're like, actually, I want one.
Nice.
That's where they came from.
Nice.
The last question that was pre-submitted. What should be the right way to scale so that I can get 5K a month consistently?
I would just up your price. Every, what do you think? 3-ish clients, I would up your price $500.
Yeah. Yeah. I didn't do that. And suddenly 2 years passed and I was still charging the same rate. So like, don't do what I did. Do it smarter.
Yeah, that's what I did. When I started in 2022, I started, my first site was 2,000 because I wasn't even sure I wanted to do it. I was like, I don't even know if I'm getting back into this. And the first one I sold was 2,000, and then I think I sold 2 at that price, and I upped it to 2,500, and I sold I think 5 at that price because I was still getting my feet wet. Do I like Squarespace? Do I like doing this? And then it was like, yeah. And then like every 2 sites, I upped it another $500.
Yeah, that's the easiest way to do it. It feels a lot more daunting if you go from 2 to 4.
Yeah.
For example.
Yeah. Because every leap, it doesn't feel that scary. And then someone pays it and you're like, well, I can't lower it now. Okay. And yeah. And my custom sites now start at 55. So
yeah. Cool.
Yay.
All right. Do you have one you want to start with from the other pre-submitted?
Sure. I like the first one. Did you struggle initially with being like artsy, or did you find that design came to you naturally? What would you say was your initial learning curve to get your business going in terms of design stuff?
That's a great question.
Isn't it? I like that one too.
Honestly, going back to being the hardest person to design for, when I started freelancing, even creating the cover photo for my Facebook page, the logo for the profile picture, like those kinds of stupid things took me ages. And I'm trained in this. I know conceptual design and all of the design principles and elements, and I know how to use Illustrator and all of the things. And yet, somehow, my first website turned out it was like I was designing it as a 60-year-old man. Like, it didn't represent me at all, and I think that's because I was always an in-house designer, and so I was always designing for, like, clients, and what I wanted was never part of the equation.
Right.
So I never developed my own style, so my biggest part was, how do I represent the creativeness that I feel, the artsiness that I'm not very artsy, I'm more designy. So it was like, what does that look like in digital?
Mhm.
I had no idea, clearly.
How fun.
What would you say?
Um, that's so interesting. I just want to underline that point there about how different print and digital are. When I started building websites and then people would come to me and be like, "Can you make a brochure?" And I'd be like, "Sure." "Can you create a t-shirt?" Just like, "Yeah, no problem." And it took me a while to be like, "Oh my God, this is a whole different beast." Like, and now I'm like, I don't touch anything that's print. I only do digital. It's such a designing for another medium is such a different thing. So
It is.
anyway, it
Yeah.
really is. Um, for me, I mean, the other thing for me, so when I started out, so it was 2006 when I started building sites. And so it was really early in web days. So there really weren't a lot of standards. And so it was kind of just like whatever looks good kind of thing. Um, and so I really just like tried to make pretty things, and I looked at what other people were doing, and I was building for authors. So I Googled a lot of authors and writers groups and just really tried to kind of mimic what I saw. And I still do that to a certain degree. I have a swipe file of like every time I come across a site that I'm like, whoa, that's awesome. I'll save it, and then I use those. I'll go back and revisit the whole folder as when I'm looking for design inspiration and stuff. But I never took a class on it or anything. I think I tried to look at what I saw on other sites that I felt worked, that I thought was both pretty and functional, which is one of the things I really love about being a designer. And one of the reasons I never really gravitated towards being an artist is I love the functionality of pretty things. And when pretty things are made for function, to accomplish a goal. So every time I saw that and I saw somebody doing that particularly well, I was like, oh yeah. And then I would just try and learn from them.
That's essentially what I ended up doing too. It was like, okay, now I need to do a website, and
Right.
like, there was nothing else. It was just like,
Right.
where do I start? Do I code it from scratch? I don't know how to code. Like,
Right. Right. For sure.
banners, galleries, images, logos. Oh,
Right. Okay, so now let's do the best question. The best question of all time. I think we need to do I need to do a whole separate video just on this. But if you woke up tomorrow morning with no clients and no money in the bank, what would you do?
oh, that's a very intelligent question.
Isn't that awesome? I love that one.
If I woke up tomorrow with no clients and no money in the bank, I would, well, it depends on the situation. For me, I have an audience. So even if I had no clients and no money in the bank, I could make something, pop it up to sell, tell them about it, and sell something. That's what I would probably do. But if I
You
didn't have an
would
audience,
create a product or a service and send it to your list.
yep.
Mm.
What would you do?
Um, I would come up with a special or a sale, something buzzy, something fun, something compelling, and a good bargain. And I would start with that list that we were talking about earlier. I would start with every client I'd ever worked with, ever in the history of all time, and I would start with the most recent. I think a lot of people make this mistake. They're like, "Well, I just built that site for someone 2 months ago. They don't, need me again or whatever." And it's like, "No, no, no. You are fresh in their mind. You blew their minds. You did amazing things for them. You're fresh in their mind. If that's the perfect time to reach out and see if they know somebody who might need this new thing. Or if it's an upsell, so like I offer a design subscription package. So a lot of people work with me, they buy a site, they love me, love what I did, love their new site, they're super excited. And they're like, oh God, well, I just got to get this freebie up there. And, I got to like update my LinkedIn and all of these things. And I'm like, yeah, no, I do unlimited graphic design for a month for $1,500 if that sounds good to you. And, I'll just build all that stuff for you. And you just put it in the Trello board, give me your to-do list, and I will make all of that happen. And that's a really good thing to offer to somebody who, even if they just gave you a ton of money, So anyway, that's what I would do. I would reach out to all past clients. Then I'd reach out to anybody that I'd ever worked with in any capacity. And I'll tell you, even if you worked with them on another job, even if they don't know you as a designer, but they know you in another professional capacity, they know your friendliness with customer service, or they know that your excellence with which you do things, or that you're detail oriented, or whatever it is that you brought to that job, they know you in through that lens. That is the perfect person to refer clients to you. So yeah, that's what I would do. And then just work through contacts until I had $5,000 in my pocket.
That is way smarter than my answer.
Well, I've had to do that a time or two, so I've got a system.
Well, I mean, if you think about it, if you don't have an audience when you first got started, that's probably what I was doing too, because I'd just be like, hey, we worked together. We had fun. Do you have anything else?
Yeah.
What do you need help with right now? What can I help you with? And that I would get little projects out of that. So in reality, that's probably a more helpful answer to where people are in the beginning. Because if you don't have an audience, then you can't ask them to do anything. Yeah.
You can't rely on that. Yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Okay. So next question. How do you convince people to pay you $3,000 to $5,000 for a site? It seems like such a large price for small businesses.
I don't remember who said this, but I want to say it was like Chris from the future or James Wedmore or some really smart person. Never ever, I think it was Chris, never ever assume what's in your client's wallet.
Yes.
And that was really helpful for me, because what feels like expensive to us, I mean, if they're asking you about it, presumably they've seen your prices. Like they already know that. That's one of the big reasons why I say list your prices, because that cuts out the people that you have to convince.
Mm-hmm.
What are your thoughts on that?
I don't.
Right.
I don't. These are the prices. They work for you or they don't.
Mm-hmm.
Take it or leave it. And I love that. Stay out of their bank account. You don't know. You don't know what money they have or don't have. You don't know what's important to them or what their priorities are. And that's not your job. You don't have to worry about their financial stability. My God. I say from experience, because when I did consulting and I was kind of like a business coach, I ended up kind of being like a business therapist, which was not fun. And the reason I burnt out is because I took too much responsibility for my client's success. And like, you don't have to do any of that. You don't have to get into any of that. So yeah, I just don't. I don't convince anyone of anything ever. This is the price. This is what I do. It's worth it to you or it's not. And if it's not, peace, love,
find somebody else.
Find somebody else. Yeah. Find your perfect person. I'm rooting for you,
Yeah. I think the dangerous thing there is that if you have somebody that's a potential client that you need to convince, they're going to be a red flag client, most likely, because they don't see your value right from the beginning. They don't see, maybe not your value specifically, but the value in what you're doing, the value in the tool that you're using, the service you're providing, like all of that's missing. And so you don't really want to work with that person because it's not going to be fun.
Right. That's really true. And I want to say something else. There's something else on this that's really important. So when you get to the point, when you get some cash flow in, I just asked this question in my Facebook group. I was like, what comes first, money or sales, cash flow, or marketing or branding? And everybody's like branding. And I'm like, not always. Sometimes sales are first. So, sometimes it's like, I need money in the bank. But anyway, the point of all that is, when you get to the point that you're actually doing some marketing and you're starting to get a little strategic and you want to get some content out in the world, the way you get content out in the world starts to establish your relationship with your clients before they even get on a discovery call. And so it's really important in that marketing content that you position yourself as an expert, and that you're, everybody's like, give value, give value, give value. And it's like, yes, that's important, but you really want to position yourself as an authority. So you want to take a stand on something. You want to talk about the stuff that pisses you off. That's a great topic. That's a great source for content. If you're talking about stuff in your industry or even with your competitors that annoy you and piss you off, it points to something you value, which is a great way to create a bond with your followers and with your customers. And here's the thing. You go on a rant or you take a stand, or you're like, this is how this should be. This is what your website should look like. Or I have had it with those ugly Shopify sites. You don't have to put up with that anymore. You get to have a gorgeous Shopify site or whatever your USP is. And you go on a little rant about it. When somebody hears that and it resonates and they get on the phone with you, they immediately treat you differently. They are not treating you like a store clerk. They're not treating you like, somebody that, okay, so why? Okay, but so you're charging so much money. That seems outrageous to me. Like, why should I pay that? You have to convince me to pay you. It's like, it's no, click, no. Like, they get on the phone with the right attitude, and that establishes it right out the get-go. So sorry, that was a long answer, but.
Nope, that was perfect. I love all of that. That's so true. So
Right.
true.
Right. Okay, next question. Do you feel there are enough clients to be able to just offer services for Squarespace and not other platforms?
Hell yes.
Yeah, right, for sure.
People that I've pulled off of like WordPress and stuff, and when we do their like offboarding, what do you call that? Like the tutorial call where I'm showing them how to use, they're like, so if I want to put a page in my main navigation, I'm like, you literally just click and drag and let go. And she's like, so I'm just saying.
Right. Yeah, stick with Squarespace. You don't have to branch out. Yeah. I know people who do, but it's not required.
No.
Okay. Okay, and yeah, this was a question somebody asked that I think is kind of interesting. If the client asks you, tell them what platform you design on. Is there a stigma for using web design software instead of coding it from scratch? And I'm like, heck no. I think we've talked about that, but
no. I mean, clients do not want a website that is coded from not the like public figures, single person entrepreneurs, small entrepreneur teams. None of them want a website you've custom coded from scratch. They don't. No, they don't know why they don't want it. I can tell them why they don't want it.
Right. And I have to do a quick shout out. Walter said, how do I make those tables look good? Back when we were talking about websites and tables, and like, yeah, I feel you. I feel you, friend. Yeah. Okay. And so Emise has a question. How much can you charge as a self-learner? I mean, so how do you know if you're good enough to charge $2,000 as a beginner? I mean, the market will tell you. That's my short answer. What would you say, Caitlin?
That's kind of what I was going to say. Like, you don't really know what people will pay until you ask for it. But also, you probably shouldn't ask. So until you list it, until you publish it, until you put it out there, no one's paying attention to you. So if you put it out there at 2 and you don't get any clients, then take it down to 1,800 or whatever and see what happens. It can fluctuate.
And I'm really a fan of establishing that perceived value by putting a higher price on your site somewhere public. So, even if you just say sites start at, so like if you want to charge $2,000 for your websites, I would say sites start at 2,500 or 3,000. And then I would go to everybody and I would be like, huge deal, help me build my portfolio. Like, I'm just starting a business and, I'm going to offer it to you for $1,500 or whatever, 1,700 or whatever. And then that's how I would do it.
Yeah, that's called price anchoring. We went down this rabbit hole with Chris from the future talking about that. So if they see, very quick lesson, if they see the larger number first, then they're anchoring to that. And then suddenly the price that would have otherwise seemed too expensive now seems very cheap because they saw the most expensive thing first and the least expensive thing second.
Right. So when you're messaging people, that's such a good point. Thank you. When you're messaging people, you don't say I'm offering websites for $1,500. You say I'm offering websites for half off or $1,000 off or whatever. And then you link to your site where it's listed. So they don't have a number in mind until they see the full site and then they have to do the math.
Yeah. That's a really good way. That unfortunately, that psychology works in reverse too. So if you like you were just saying, I'm offering them half off for X. Like if you say that number, that lower number, they're going to remember that.
Yep.
And that's the one that they're going to anchor to,
Yep.
unfortunately. So
It's
yeah.
true. Yeah, and Wall has a good point. Big businesses don't want it coded either. They just don't know or don't want to admit it. It's so true because at the end of the day, it's like you don't want a site you have to babysit.
Yeah. Yeah. Not unless you're Target or somebody that has buku of people to manage it.
Right. All right, next question. How is everyone finding their clients?
I'm finding mine from Google and YouTube. It's been that way for many years.
Mhm.
Where are
Mhm.
you finding yours?
Well, I would say talk about that a little bit because you've got a strategy for your content and how you've built that up.
Yeah, I mean, long term. Um, everybody that asks me this question, how do you get people from Google and YouTube? And I say blogging, and they're like, "Oh, so you're good at SEO." And I don't know that I would say that. I know what to do, but doing it is a different thing. And this big body of content existed before I knew what to do. And so when you scan that with something like SEO space, don't do it. don't don't do it, but also do it because you're going to see that I don't have a very good rank or score or whatever with SEO space. And yet, the thing that's most important is the content and how helpful is it, and is it answering questions people are actually looking for? And I check all of those boxes. So even though I'm not great at the implementation of SEO best practices right now, I'm still getting people through the blog who are looking for answers to those questions because they are searching them in Google and they are landing on my blog posts. And then that turns into either a customer or a client. The same thing with YouTube because they're both search engines.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. For sure. I have a whole rant on SEO. Can I do a 30-second rant on SEO?
Go for it, please.
Yeah, because people are all like, "Oh, I wanna do SEO and I wanna learn all about it and do all the things." And the thing about SEO that nobody talks about is that Google knows what you had for breakfast. So, like, you don't have to do all these machinations to let Google know what you're about. Google knows what you're about. Google reads your content. Google has a clue. The most important thing is consistent content and inbound links. Now, you also don't want to screw anything up. So you don't want to build your site on a crappy platform. Squarespace rocks. So that's fine. You don't want to, have a bunch of huge images on your site. I know KATELYN'S not doing that. You don't want to have like, no alt tags and like crappy page titles and descriptions. I know that KATELYN'S technical SEO is on point. And as web designers, we need to know technical SEO. We need to be able to do those things and execute them very well. But in terms of like long-term content, ongoing content SEO strategy, do we need to like hack the whole? I mean, I would argue, no, you can. I don't want to like diss SEO experts at all because it is 100% possible to like hack all the stuff and create an article that just kills. And if you have like a sales page for a program that you're really pushing, I mean, doing some like SEO keyword and like competitor research and stuff, that's on point. Do it. That's awesome. But like, I have just seen it over and over and over and over again for so many years that if you just create consistent content that people link back to because they see value in it, Google's going to be like, "Oh, she's smart. She knows what she's talking about." And guess what she's talking about? All these things. And that just shoots your authority score up and you get traffic. So
Yep.
anyway.
That's exactly what happened. I had no clue what I was doing in relation to SEO at all. But
Yeah.
because I was posting consistently and posting very long, helpful articles that answered all the questions that could be possibly related to the main topic.
Right.
It was golden.
It worked. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And now you've got a stream. Now you've got that incoming stream of clients.
Mhm.
For me, I'm probably 80%, 80 to 90% of my client base is referrals and repeat business. I haven't done all of my financials for last year. The first year that I was in business, my average cost for a website was $2,500, like $2,800 or something like that, just under $3,000. But the average client spent over almost $7,000 with me. So the average client spent $6,800. because of like what I was talking about, like upsells and cross sells and like good marketing and like exceptional customer service and like making everybody feel really special and loved and valued and like all that stuff. And so they would just keep like giving me money. And so repeat business is a really big part of my business model. And referrals is a big piece too. So I would say that's like a big, huge chunk of my business. And then the other is probably social. I'm pretty active in Facebook. I'm pretty active in my groups. I love my groups. I have like maybe 8 or 9 groups I really love. And I go in there and I comment and I talk to people about either web design or hobbies or whatever. And I've made a fair amount from that too. That's probably my other one. And I get some SEO traffic, but that's not my main thing.
Yeah. I've never leaned into the referrals thing, and all of my clients love me, but I don't push that. I don't ask them to refer me. I did a couple of times, and the people that were referred to me, one in particular, she met me on a discovery call. This is not that long ago, actually. Um, she met me on a discovery call, and she had no idea what my business name was. She didn't look at my website. She just got the contact information, must be my like email address from my client. And when she found out my business name was Launch the Damn Thing, and then when she looked at my services page and it was so loud, in her opinion, she was like, I don't want my website to look like this. And my first thought was, you're not my person. That's okay.
You're not my person.
If
Yeah.
that's a concern, you're not my person. And not because that's the type of website that I build for everyone. That's absolutely not the case.
Yeah.
I can build feminine and pink just as easily as I can build distressed and like garbagey, like
Right.
whatever.
Right.
But it's up to the client. It's the fact that she didn't know me well enough to know that I could stand in as her style and not mine.
Yeah.
It's like, this is not a conversation that I want to convince you on. So it completely depends on what you want. I don't want referrals, so that's not part of my business. I've always been better at just teaching people and building my authority that way, and that's why they come through.
Yeah, and there's something to that too. I get a lot of clients who are like, it's just a referral, and so they get on the phone and they're like, "What do you do? Where's your website? What do you? How much is this?" But most of the time, I work really well with those clients. I don't mind them at all because usually they're building. I get a lot of executives, C-suite people who are opening consulting gigs, and so they just get a referral. They don't care. They're like, "I'm just going to give you my money. Just build me a good site. I trust you. Just do it." And they end up being good clients, but they don't necessarily know anything about me or my aesthetic or my site or whatever. What's your email again? Like it's just not on their radar. And if someone finds you on Google, they find you on Google, they look on your site, they look at you, they look at your aesthetic, they read your about page, they go through the whole process of what we build websites to do. And so they come to the discovery call knowing you and knowing you a little bit better. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
That's so funny. I love that. Okay, next question. How are we doing on time? Okay, so we're right at time, but we were thinking, and Barb has a question. And we were thinking we would stay on a little bit longer because Caitlin and I have time. So we're gonna go to 90 minutes, I think. And if you have to go, that's fine. Submit your question in the chat. We will totally answer. But yeah, we're like, this is fun for us, and we might as well have build up those watch hours on YouTube, man. So we're gonna keep going. Okay,
Right.
so Barb says, if launching a new biz or website, would you recommend having more than one blog post already written? Yeah, I would go to 5. I would start with 5 if you can. If you only have 3, start with what you've got. But I would start with 5, and I would aim at pillar posts. So I would have one post where you talk about your origin story, and that in a way that emphasizes your USP. So
Unique seller proposition.
thank you. I was like, how geeky do you guys want me to get with this right now? I'm sorry. This may be more than you wanted to know, but you asked the question, so I'm going to get geeky. Okay.
Go for it.
Okay. So you want to talk about your origin story, but you want to talk about just jumped on a random live. Cool stuff. Yay, we love it. Yeah, so you want to start with your origin story, and you want to do it in a way that it underlines your USP. So you want to talk about like how you got started doing what you're doing in a way that shows you can solve the main problem that your niche has. send me an email or reach out to me on socials if you want more about that, because that's like a 3-day workshop, but there's a whole thing. So talk about your origin story in a way that solves a problem for your niche. Then talk about your niche. Do a whole post where you talk about your niche, who your right people are, and it doesn't have to be anything like hidden or whatever. You just literally, these are the people I serve, these are the people I like to work with. These are the people who find a ton of value in my work, and just describe who they are, their characteristics. What do they want? Why do they want it? Why have they not been able to get it? What are their thoughts? What are their beliefs? Go into some of that on a post, just talk about it. And then do another post where you go into your USP specifically, where you really talk about what you love about what you do. It's going to feel similar to your origin story, but that's different, where you go into your USP, and the USP is usually grounded in what you love about what you do. So if you have a hard time saying, how do I set myself apart from my competition? Look at the stuff you really enjoy, and it's going to point you to why people should choose you, and like then who your niche is and the whole thing. And then I would link to, if you're a web designer, then I would do a post that talks about, and that one, like Megan from Floating Lotus Design, she just commented and she goes, posts that drive to your money pages. Yeah, for sure. On your why, the about you thing, I would link to your about page. Your about page needs to link to your services page. The story about your niche needs to link to your services page, and the story about your USP needs to link to your contact page.
Yeah. And I would just want to point out too, because these are like authority building, expert building kind of conversations you're starting with, that always makes people a little nervous when we're like, position yourself as an expert. And you're like, I'm not an expert. Okay. The thing is, you're not, yes, you're right. You're not an expert, but you are an expert more so than your client. That's all that matters. All you need to know is more than the person who's going to pay you to do the thing. That's it. So when we say position yourself as an expert, we're not talking about you got to be Oprah Winfrey. You're not Mel Robbins. You're not like James Wedmore. You're not Marie Forleo. You're just you. You just know a little more than the people who don't know how to do the thing and they aren't willing to do it themselves. That's it.
Yep, that's so true. Thank you. Yeah, it's such a good point. Yeah, you don't have to know everything. You just have to be a couple points ahead of the person who you're helping. Yeah.
Yeah.
Barb says Kiki. Yay.
Love it.
Yeah, so good. Okay, so next question. I'm good at fun. I'm good at web design and marketing, and I've done a lot of it, but always for other people and businesses. And frankly, the idea of having a website of my own, of marketing myself, is terrifying to this introverted, highly sensitive person. I had my own business and website back in the day, and I discovered I really do not like having people stop me at the grocery store to ask, hey, aren't you so-and-so? Is there another way of doing things for an introverted HSP who really values her privacy and prefers to stay out of the limelight? Yes.
I'm probably not the best person to ask that particular question because I am pretty introverted. I'm probably more of an ambivert now, but I was highly introverted when I first started, did not want to be the center of attention, did not want my photo to be on the website, didn't even want to put my name in the business name, didn't want my name on the about page or the contact page, didn't want it in my email address. Like, can I just be a studio and you don't know who you're working with? No, that's actually not a thing. You can't do that. So over the last 10 years, I have grown into the person who now has a YouTube channel. It surprises you where you go is my point. So do the thing that's comfortable for you now, or just this side of comfortable. Ideally, you're doing something that's slightly uncomfortable because that's how you grow. Yeah, I would just say don't box yourself in quite so tight, because you do kind of put yourself out there.
I love that. I love that. And you went to Squarespace's Circle Day last September, and you were famous. You had people come up to you and like know who you were.
That was rewarding, but also strange. Like, that's not a thing. I didn't start this business. I didn't name it that. I didn't put myself on all the YouTube thumbnails for that purpose. So to see that as a result of all the people that I've helped, like, that part's rewarding, but also like, you're here just to see me. That's so strange. I love it, but it's so strange.
That's awesome. I love it.
So you never know what's going to come out of this.
Right. For sure. Yeah, I would echo a lot of that. I would say you need to position yourself as an authority. If you want to do well, you need to be able to take up space in the world
Yeah.
and position yourself as an expert and authority, and that requires some visibility. I think you can do it in ways. You don't have to have a YouTube channel at all.
No.
Um, at this point, I really recommend people, if you're doing stuff online, I recommend you do it on one of the 4 evergreen channels, which is YouTube, blogging, TikTok, or Pinterest. You can do a ton on Pinterest and blogging and not ever show your face. Um, yeah, right. Like you can do a ton with just written medium. You don't have to be on YouTube. You don't have to be talking. So I think there's a whole trend of faceless marketing. I even have a freebie on my site if anybody wants to go get it. There's a whole trend of faceless marketing and like how to do that. It's totally possible. So you don't have to have your face out online if you don't want to. You just need to be willing to create content.
Yeah. That's what I was doing when I first started. I was way more comfortable writing about what I knew rather than speaking about what I knew. So
Mhm.
you just really have to find the thing that gives you enough privacy, but also allows you to take up space in the world, like you said.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So next question's really process oriented. I love it. How do you keep clients on your timeline?
that's, that's such a loaded question. Repeat yourself all the time, all the time, all the time. Every time, every point of contact I have with them, I'm ending that conversation by, okay, so you know what we're doing next? This is the date. This is what we're doing. This is what I need from you. This is what you need from me. Like communicating constantly because this is not their business. We are leading them through a process they're unfamiliar with.
Yeah, we are the leaders in the room for sure, and the leaders in the process. And I really agree with that. If you have a deadline in mind that you are trying to adhere to, that is every communication ends with that. Or if there's a specific thing you need from them, that every email ends with this is what I need from you, and by this date. If I'm driving it. So my business model in particular, I don't care. I actually don't care. We should talk about your business model and why you keep them online because you build sites in 2 weeks.
Yep. Yeah. Okay. So that's a fair question. I don't like the I don't care approach just because I get bored and want to move on from things. No matter how much I love the project, how much I love the client, my brain's wandering off into creativity land and it wants to do 5,000 other things. Not because this thing is boring, but because my brain just works that way. I need to challenge myself. And that challenge is over. It's time to move on to the next challenge. So I have to do them in 2 weeks. I found that Page's system really works well for my brain because of that. So 2 weeks for just a website, 3 weeks for a website and brand. Because of that, it's on a very rigid timeline. So I, from the get-go, when I talk to them on the discovery call, I lay it out. When they fill out their paperwork, they get an automatic message that lays it out in a table. It's like, this date, we're doing this thing. That date, we're doing this thing. That date, we're doing this thing. So it's clear at every turn. It's in the contract. It's in the invoice. It's in the proposal. It's in the thing that they get. It's in all of the stuff. It's in our collaborative space in the client portal. They have due dates. When I talk to them, we're repeating it. It's literally at every turn. Because of that, though, it sounds like a lot of work, but it's not, I promise. And because of that, I don't have to drive them. Like I am doing it and they are following. I am leading and they are following. It doesn't feel like I am pulling teeth to get this stuff done on time. They just do what I'm asking them to do because it's top of mind. I'm reminding them constantly and I'm doing so in a way that doesn't feel like I'm nagging them to death. So
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
works quite well, like clockwork. I never ever have a site that goes past where that has been the timeline, where that has been the schedule. I've had some that I've allowed to go past where like, oh, we got to add on this extra thing. It's all based on my timeline if I have projects coming up after that and if I can. Typically, though, when I'm trying to stay booked out, that's not a thing. Like, got a week in between this project and that project, we're not moving. Like, we can't finish it in your timeline, in your spot. You get moved to the next available spot. And so that's the secondary motivation for them to do it on time. Not just that I'm asking them to or telling them to on a repeating basis, but also they know their actual consequences outside of money coming out of their wallet. It's not just that, it's also time lost. So that's extra motivation.
Yeah. I think that's a really good point too. If I am trying to push someone along in a process, I'll give them 3 things. I give them this is what I need from you by this date, and then the consequences. And if that doesn't happen, this is what's going to happen.
Yep.
Yeah. So that's really, and I mean, and we say consequence, I'm not yelling at them. I'm just saying, look, if you don't do this, this is how it's going to go. Yeah. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah. I mean, they need to know this is not their job. They don't need to know all of that stuff. So they only need to know what happens if I don't, and that's it. You don't
Yeah.
have to be nasty. You can just be like, if this launch date isn't good for you, if you want to do it later, if you have a photo shoot or something, and you want to put those client photos in later, your portfolio, whatever it is, we can do it. We can totally do it. I'll be there for you, but it will not happen by this date.
Right. Yep. Exactly. I love that. Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. And for me, my process, because I work totally differently, I do not do 2-week builds. I tried it. I can't make it work. It's too hardcore, and I want to have freedom of my day. I don't want to know that I have to wake up and do your edits today or whatever. I just want to be I want a little more fluidity in my day. So the 2-week build doesn't work for me. But the way I work my payment schedule with clients is that I require payment upfront or in 2 payments 1 month apart. So I don't care when we build your site. I don't care when it's finished. I don't care about anything. Your second payment is due either when we launch. So if we launch sooner than a month, but that almost never happens. But if we do launch sooner than a month, then you have to pay then, or 1 month later. And the thing the reason I do it that way is because if a client needs time, or a client has a thing, or, California gets lit on fire or whatever, I'm like, don't sweat it. Like, I don't care. It's fine. Like, we'll just postpone, get back to me whenever you can. Now, the kicker is when you do that, because right now I've set aside time. Now, if you don't want to do it right now, I've got plenty of other stuff I can do. It's fine. But if you come back to me in 3 months and say, okay, now I'm ready to finish my site, there might be a queue. So we're not going to work on your timeline all of a sudden. But yeah, that's how I run mine.
Yeah. And I think that's totally fine as long as you're communicating that with them and they know what the expectation is.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's the biggest key, right? Like, always give your clients expectations. Creates such a sense of safety for them, lowers their anxiety
Mm-hmm.
and everything. Okay, so this was a question for me. I'd love to know how you'd price web design with the addition of AI imaging and animation. Any thoughts on how to get a good estimate? Yeah, so if I do, right now I'm trying to figure this out. Some clients, I kind of throw in a little AI imagery depending on what they need and how prominent I want to feature their site in my portfolio, to be perfectly frank. If you let me build you a really pretty site, I might give you some goodies. But I'm working on a package of, like, and of course I have my AI photo shoots on my site as a separate gig. But if you want me to design imagery for your site, custom images for your site, I'm flirting with maybe like $1,500 to do that, like custom imagery, 1,500 to 2,000. So that's kind of how I'm pricing that right now.
That's good to know.
Yeah. When you speak to small business owners, how do you do that with images from clients? Do you source images from stock sites and stuff, or do you require your clients to give you everything?
No. I don't require my clients to give me everything, but I do give them the opportunity to give me what they have. So they have kind of a bucket where they can dump stock photos if they have any, photos of themselves, if they have any specific photos that they want to show up on a contact page or an about page or services page or whatever, they can dump that in there. Whatever I don't have, I source typically from Unsplash for them. And lately, I have been periodically resubscribing to Midjourney to create something that I can't find, which has been useful. So,
Fun.
I mean, I'm not advertising that because I don't want. That's a rabbit hole I would love to go down, but I don't have time for. So,
Right.
so I am doing a little bit of that, but I'm not charging for it at this point because I need to get a lot better at it, probably. But
Very fun.
it has
Oh,
been helpful.
I love that. That's exciting.
Yeah.
I'm always happy to convert another AI geek. It's very fun. Okay, so is Squarespace enough to create a full big website and charge like $10K for a project? Yes.
Yep.
For sure. So many times booking out has to do with knowing where to look for clients or having a relationship with people who rely on websites. If they don't have a relationships at the ready, how would you advise people to find clients? I feel like we maybe covered that.
Yeah.
Anything you'd add?
No, except that if they don't have if they don't see the need for or don't currently have a website, it's going to be harder to convince them that to buy one from you.
Mm.
So if that's where the breakdown is, then I would not waste my time
Mhm.
trying to convince people that don't have one to have one.
Yeah, if they don't value a website, you're not gonna be that's not yeah, it's yeah.
Not for the money that you need to charge in order to pay your bills. Like if we're talking $250 for a Squarespace website that has 5 pages on it, I mean, yeah, you're gonna win that conversation.
Yeah, right.
But if you're charging 2,000 and up,
Mhm.
that's gonna be a way harder conversation to have.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. How much knowledge do you need of how much SEO knowledge do you need before you start a web design business?
Well, I would say you need to know nothing because that's approximately how much I knew when I first started mine.
I
I
didn't
was
know any
using
either. Yeah.
Right. I was just using the Squarespace checklist in their help center. That was it. That was what I knew about SEO.
That's a good checklist. There's nothing wrong with that.
It's a good checklist.
It's a good checklist. I would say as a web designer, you have to have technical SEO dialed in. You've got to know that. You
I bet.
don't have to, the on page and the off page and the ongoing SEO and all that stuff. Like you don't need an href, subscription, and like you don't need to be doing, huge competitor research and stuff before you don't need to know all that stuff, but you need to know in detail, you need to know the ins and outs of page titles, descriptions, how to do alt tags, why to do alt tags, how to compress images, why that's important, that kind of stuff.
Did you do that kind of stuff back in 2000s? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, so back in that day, so it was funny because in those days, SEO was different. So SEO was all about knowing the tricks. So
Mhm.
like, we were just catching on to the fact that you could create a page that had the font the same color as the background. So it would be invisible to the person landing on the site, but you could stack that thing with keywords. And like,
I've heard this.
right, and meta information was still a thing. So like one of the secrets I discovered, so this other web design company that did sites for authors that she and I were always trading for the top 1 and 2 position, is one of the things that I would see on her sites when she would build a site for somebody, there were like 13 meta categories, like author and owner and business person and idea holder. There's just like all this stuff. So in addition to titles and description, which is all Google pays attention to now, and keywords, there was a meta thing for keywords, which actually hung around for a long time, but that's long dead too at this point. But like there were all these meta lines of information you could put in, and it was her name, it was her business, it was her business address, it was her business city, it was it was just like she just packed it with all of her information. And I'm like, heck, I can do that too. So it was in those days, it was kind of knowing how to hack the system. And that's the single biggest change that I've seen happen in SEO now. And it's why I preach what I do now of like, you don't have to freak out about SEO anymore because it's not about knowing the secrets. It used to be, it isn't now. It's just, you just need to get out there and talk about what you care about and what you do. That's it. And do it in a good way. Offer enough value that people find value in what you're doing and they link back to you. I mean, that's it. That's it. It's really simple. So anyway.
Yeah. So I would just say if you're talking about SEO from standpoint of you need your website to get found, it'd be smart to learn best practices for your own website. If
Mhm.
you're talking about it in regard to clients, um, obviously, the more you know, the better, because if you give them a site with good underlying SEO foundation, they're going to get found a little bit easier, a lot
Mhm.
easier potentially
Mhm.
than if you don't. However, I did not start websites knowing any SEO. Did not know Squarespace had a checklist for this. So
That checklist is a good place to start.
Yeah, I shudder to know what those first few websites were doing traffic-wise after I passed them off. They were beautiful, they were fun and exciting, they were interesting, they were easy to use, but so do you have to? How much knowledge do you need? You can get started before you know anything, but your product, your end product will be a lot more effective if you know a little bit.
Yeah. 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 For sure. And Fran has a good question. So the web portfolio should be live or should be screenshots? I am a fan of screenshots. So early on, I did what everybody said and I made all of mine live. And I built some breathtakingly beautiful sites that I don't have screenshots of. And I wish I did, because I wish I could show them off because they were really impressive. But the real reason is that when you link to live sites and then you hand your Mona Lisa Sistine Chapel ceiling over to the client, they get at it with finger paint and screw it up. And now you've got this ugly thing with broken links and bad images, and clients will just do stuff. So screenshots.
Yeah.
I use links, I use live links in social media, but that's it.
I tend to do a little bit of both, but only with the sites that I know, like, that's not a client that's gonna go in there and tinker around. So then I don't have to be worried so much about suddenly it being like Beavis and Butthead took over. This is not
You do a really smart thing, because you actually put on, this is the first place I've seen this, and it was really smart. You put at the bottom, maintained by client.
I mean, it got to that point, right? Where I was
Right.
like, this is live. This is still working. It's still working for them. It's a real thing. I didn't fake it till I made it. Like,
Right.
it exists. Go look
Right.
at it.
Somebody
But
paid me
also,
for this.
right? But also,
Yeah.
I don't know what it looks like now.
Right. And it's smart, because then if you're being paid especially with, like, they buy a maintenance package or whatever, you can say on there site maintenance by whatever, and so, site maintenance by me, and then the site is always going to look good, and then you can use a link too. Yeah.
Yeah. So screenshot, in those cases, a screenshot of the homepage, so you at least know what it looked like before when you took the screenshot and then linked to it, and site client maintains the site or whatever.
Yeah, for
So
sure.
it depends.
Yeah. For sure. I think that's really smart. Yeah. Case by case is probably the way to go. Yeah. So Leska has an interesting question. I have seen this all over the groups lately. It's so bizarre. So I'm a screenshot gal too, she says, but do you have any preference on whether you add designed by at the bottom of the site? What has happened? So somebody told the internet that it was, what did I read? Petty or tacky, that it was tacky to put a site credit in the footer that you built the site. And they were like, don't do that.
This is my brain just broke. I was like, F that.
Right?
No.
Like, I get a ton of business from people clicking on those links, because
Yes.
you can see in your analytics where your incoming traffic comes from. Not to mention, that's a crap ton of inbound links that we were just talking about that helps your SEO. But like, I get a ton of business from, especially because I build sites for influencers. So they get lots of traffic and I get traffic from them.
Yeah.
So there is no world in which I would advocate for web designers to not put a credit for their design skills in the footer. Now, I know some people talk about doing the design page. If I'm doing a much bigger site and they had like a photographer and the copywriter and like all that kind of stuff, then I'll build the site credit page. But that site has got my name, the link to my business, and everything on there.
Yeah, all of mine do too. Now, I do say that I'm not one of those petty people. Like, if they want to take it off, most likely in that situation, I don't need it to be there. Like,
Right.
if they're worried about it, they're the type of person that I'm not going to fight on that
Right.
on that idea. So I'm not going to charge them for it. I don't care that much. But all my clients love me, and it is absolutely in their footer. That's crazy talk. What
Isn't that
is happening?
crazy?
Yes.
I'm
Book authors have the author name on it,
Yes, right, right. And the publisher and the editors thanked in the acknowledgments. What in what world? Like, it's
That's
just so.
devaluing us.
Yes, and most I feel like that too. I feel like clients are proud to show that off. I mean, this may sound arrogant.
Go for it. I mean,
What? I feel like my clients are very proud that I built their site. I feel
mhm,
like they're very proud to show it off and be like, "Hey, like Diane, like that chick, she built my site. Like you go talk to her." Like
yep,
it reflects good on them. That's why I get referrals too. It reflects well on them when they send people my way. So,
mhm.
like, yes, put your name on in there. You can do it. Yes. And Leska goes, yeah, I feel like that's how I might get similar clients. Yes, my niche looks at each other's sites. Yes, 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 yes.
That's a thing. That's an actual thing. That's not an assumed thing. That's not like a hopeful, wishful thinking. That happens.
Right?
Yeah.
For sure. Okay, and Megan says, I saw one person say they didn't think it was appropriate to have a designer put their name on their site that they paid for, right? And then she's got the rolling eye emoji. Yes, yes. And yeah, and Leska's with Caitlin. Yes, yes, F that. Yeah, that's no, we're not. No,
To each
absolutely
their
not.
own. Like if that's inappropriate for some people. Now, there have been situations where I have amended the name in the site credit because launch the damn thing doesn't exactly work for a church website, for example. Like there is a niche misalignment there. I have actually changed it to just an abbreviation, LTDT or something like that, and still linked to it. They can
Nice.
go down the rabbit hole and figure it out, but I don't have to proudly display my actual business name. It's not about that. It's about the link.
Right.
So
It's about the
like
link.
designed by, yeah,
Yeah,
very important.
absolutely. Yes, 100%. Yeah, Waltz is proud. Yes, that's why the buy-in grows with more projects and products. Absolutely, 100%, 100%. Okay, so this is probably the last question we're gonna have. We're gonna have time for, but this is the perfect one to end this session on. So, okay, I'd love to hear how you both came up with your business names and why you use your own personal name or not. So, like, yeah, like how'd you come up with your business name?
Well, the first one was I've changed it a lot. I've changed it 3 times since 2015. The first one was very creative, Caitlin Dekle Designs. I
Excellent.
know, who would have ever thought?
Good for
Um,
SEO. That's not bad.
I mean, I had it like that for about 2 years, and then I was like, "That just sounds." At some point, I decided it sounded very amateur, so I was gonna have to change it. I needed a studio vibe, so I workshopped a lot. I literally, like, had a long list. I mean, an actual long list, like a legal pad list, and I talked through it with a bunch of my family. No keyword research was done on this at all. No strategic businessy marketing kind of like thought groups or market research was done. I just picked something that sounded good that I liked. I went with Studio 1862, which was something that people remembered ish. The number was always the thing. Like, what is it again? 1894? Like,
Yep, I see
yeah.
that.
Yeah. So in hindsight, maybe not the best option. I did that because we were in an old log cabin at the time, which the original portion of that in the side of the house where my office was built in 1862. So my studio was in was that was kind of like the established, like not really, but that was the vibe. So it was like Studio 54 plus old log cabin. And then I realized when that didn't work, it was because I felt too much like I was operating for corporate. And then that turned into I need to just find something that fits better and launch the damn thing. And it stuck. It's been that ever since.
I
What's
love
yours?
that.
What's
I
yours?
love that. And I love that it started as like a name for a template store because that makes so much sense. I just,
Yeah.
just launch the damn thing. Just do it.
Yeah.
Stop.
Yeah. Just launch. Stop thinking about it.
Yes. Yes. Makes so much sense for your brand. I
It
love that.
does.
I love that so much. It's so awesome. Okay, so mine is a funny story. So I was novel website design when I was building sites for authors, and then I just stayed that for forever and a day. I rebranded 2 or 3 times. Different things. I ended up on a really grungy pink and gray website that I just fell in love with. I kept it for years. But then anyway, that's what I sold. That's the business I sold in 2015. And then I just did consulting under my name. I was just DianeWhiddon.com for those years. And then when I relaunched, I didn't want to be DianeWhiddon.com because I'm like, it's not what I saw when I was starting to do research again into what web designers were doing. I saw a lot of business names. And I'm like, I feel like I need a business name. And one of the big things I talk about and rant about all the time is clarity in my consulting work. And so I was like, let's see if Clarity website design is available. And it was crazily. So I was like, okay, let's do that. Well, then, so I was Clarity website design for like a year, and I made it pink and gold. And, there were these awful pictures of me like in this like studio, and it was terrible. It just looked generic and dated, but it was just where I started. I'm like, this is good enough to get going. Let's just get some clients and see if we even want to do this. Then I discovered AI, and the brand went to hell. Because I decided that I went for this aesthetic. So the month before I really got into AI, I redesigned my whole site with this pink and green, like atomic design, mid-century modern thing. And it was so loud and obnoxious and fun. And I loved it. Then nobody else did, but I did. Me and Megan. Caitlin loved it. Yes, any designer loved it. The lay people, not so much. But then I discovered AI, and I realized that, oh my God, I don't have to rely on these graphics and just images and colors anymore. I can actually create me as a retro pinup 50s robot loving Jetsons chick. And I kind of lost my mind. And if you guys want to see the site, I'll actually show you the site. I pulled it up. I have a copy of it. It's not the, how do I do this? It's not the full on site, because like the animations and stuff don't work, but you guys can get a feel for the vibe.
I love that Megan said Space Cat rocked though.
Oh my God, yeah, I put a cat in the footer. I don't know why. Like, it was just so, I had a ball. Oops, sorry for the infinity squeak. Oh, and the quiz. I had a quiz for a while. Let's get rid of that. Okay. So here's the site now. You got a picture too in the background. There's a video of stars flying by. Like, it's so much fun. And then as you scrolled, the little atomic star like went down the page, so it followed. And so this like felt, but this was my brand. This is me. Oh my God, it was so much fun. And then look, I know what I'm doing. This is me speaking at WordCamp a bunch of years ago, and and clients, but look, it's all pink and it's like fun. I'm just look at the spacey with the Saturn, pink bubblegum Saturn in the background. I mean, I had so much fun building the site. It was just absolutely ridiculous. And there was so much movement and like all kinds of stuff on here. But so anyway,
the lesson here was, did you have clarity about your own website?
I mean, I was clear that I loved it, but and it was funny. I think I was going through a place where I was really reclaiming what I loved about my business. And I was really enjoying design again. I was really falling in love with my business after being so burnt out and so traumatized. It was really fun for me. And I almost think I needed to do it. But of course, I built that monstrosity in sales. Tanked. Like, everybody was like, and I had a bunch of people be like, I referred you a bunch of clients, but they landed on your site and said, yeah, I don't think I vibe with her style. And I'm like, oh crap. Like, I just like, I can't do that. And so right about that time, Paige put out a video of all the trends of web design. And I'm like, okay. And by now, of course, I'm frustrated and I'm starting to get sweat money. And I'm like, oh, what do I do? And I went through and I built a site where I just copied every single thing she put on that video, just all of it. And I went into ChatGPT and I'm like, give me 10 names of a really fancy web design agency. And number one was Sway Rise Creative. And I was like, yeah, Sway is like persuasiveness and Rise is like growth. And like, that's awesome. Heck yeah, that's me. And so, I put all that together and I, in like a weekend, I did it. I just, in a fit of frustration and annoyance, just rebranded everything and renamed everything. And everybody, of course, the response was like, wow, you're so fancy now. Oh, this looks so, wow, love that new site. And I'm just like, I miss Space Cat, but okay. I have a robot. You guys.
And I do think like the real lesson in that was you figuring out how to talk to your ideal client. And the way that you had been doing that was not the conversation they were wanting to have.
Right.
Whereas in my situation, when I did that, I was having fun with it. I was, for the first time, being myself with Launch the Damn Thing. And it attracted the people that I wanted to attract rather than repelling the people that I wanted to attract. So your messaging and your style, I mean, while it's not the end all be all, it is kind of important.
It really is. It's you've got to pay some attention to it, and it's really great to do what you love and create the site that you want and all of that. But at the end of the day, you've got to give the people what they want, what they're looking for, what they expect. So yeah,
Because it has to work.
Because it has to work. Yeah, that's the thing. If I didn't need the money and I was just building sites for other people who resonated with Space Cat and Robot Girl, like I would have had a blast. That business would rock, but I would have a lot of free time. So just lessons learned.
Yeah. Yeah. But we learn them and we share them so that you don't have to learn that particular lesson yourself.
Exactly. Well, this was so much fun, guys. Let us know what you thought of this format. We love showing up live and just answering questions and talking with you all. This is just a blast. And we have a lot of fun stuff coming up for the rest of the year. We're going to do once a month for a while. And then we're considering going to twice a month if you guys want to see more of us. So yeah, thank you so much to everyone who showed up live. This was so much fun. Even if you're here afterwards, please leave comments. Let us know if you have more questions. We will certainly answer them in future episodes. And thank you so much for being here. This was great. And thank you, Caitlin, for doing this with me. I love this.
Oh, I'm happy to be here. I'll do it all the time.
Awesome. All right. Thank you guys so much. We'll see you next month.